just after 1 o'clock. Welcome to UK Column News. I'm your host, Mike Robinson. Joining me today, we've got Ben Rubin and Debbie Evans. Welcome to the programme, both. We're going to get started off with something that most people probably will not find surprising, and that is the latest press release from the World Health Organization on avian flu. This is following the death of a man in Mexico, apparently with avian flu A, which is H5N2. And this is the first time that anyone has been infected with this particular so-called variant. So let's have a look at what they're saying here. On the 23rd of May, 2024, the Mexico International Health Regulations National Focal Point reported to the WHO a confirmed fatal case of human infection with avian influenza A (H5N2) virus detected in a resident of the state of Mexico who was hospitalized in Mexico City. This is the first laboratory confirmed human case of infection with an influenza A virus, that's H5N2, reported globally, and the first avian H5 virus infection in a person reported in Mexico. So on May the 23rd, the Mexico IHR NFP reported a confirmed case. They went on to say that the person who was hospitalized in Mexico had no history of exposure to poultry or other animals. The case had multiple underlying medical conditions. So here we go. What did he actually die of? Because he had multiple underlying medical conditions. The case had already been bedridden for 3 weeks for other reasons prior to the onset of acute symptoms. So where did this come from, and what actually was it? So we put that back on screen. The next one says that results from real-time polymerase chain reaction test of a respiratory sample collected and tested at INER on the 24th of April indicated a non-subtypeable influenza A virus. On the 8th of May, the sample was sent for sequencing to the Laboratory of Molecular Biology of Emerging Diseases Center for Research in Infectious Diseases, which indicated that the sample was positive for influenza A. So they did a PCR test and then they sent it for sequencing. But then they did another PCR test on the 20th of May. The sample received at the Institute of Epidemiological Diagnosis and Reference of the Mexico National Influenza Center for analysis by RT-PCR, obtaining a positive result for influenza A. And then on the 22nd of May, sequencing of the sample confirmed the influenza subtype was A H5N2. So the sample had a PCR test done on it, then it had genetic sequencing done on it, then it had another PCR test on it, and then it had further genetic sequencing done on it. And you've got to ask the question, could they not get the answer the first time round that they were wanting? So they kept testing until perhaps they did. So the first question in my mind is, what is this all about? Are they really going to attempt to push through the idea of lockdowns, PCR testing, vaccination? Could be that. But I suspect that the reason is more likely to be this. So we know that one of the Millennium Development Goals and one of the goals of net zero policy is to reduce red meat intake. In fact, all meat intake and meat and dairy, chickens, these types of things have been under attack, this type of farming, for quite a long time. We cannot forget the foot and mouth outbreak in the UK, where the slaughtered on suspicion policy was brought in based on the modelling of Neil Ferguson at Imperial College. We have seen many cases around the UK in the last few months and a couple of years, in fact, of poultry flocks being slaughtered en masse, again on suspicion, because maybe one case of bird flu was found in the flock, so the entire flock had to go. We've got to keep in mind as well that there is a policy here. The EU calls it farm to fork. It's also called farm to fork in the UK as well. This is the EU's document, Farm to Fork for a Fair, Healthy and Environmentally Friendly Food System. And of course, this is part of an aim to build a global governance policy and network for farm to fork strategy. It will bring in digital security certificates. So food as is produced from the farm to the plate will have to be tracked all the way through the process. The standards and rules are increasingly intended to exclude meat and dairy. So there are quite a number of potential benefits of this entire narrative for the World Health Organization, the United Nations in general. But Debbie, I'd just be interested in your thoughts on it, because We have a very clear agenda to remove or reduce significantly the use of meat for food across the world, and they are pushing this policy very hard, and this helps.
Good afternoon, and apologise to anybody that thinks that I'm sitting in a cave. I'm afraid my computer at the very last minute decided to change all the settings, and so it looks as though I'm in the... But yes, Mike, avian flu, there's many strands to this actually, not just fear. The PCR tests, I mean, they're looking for things, they're desperate to find things. Let's not forget Bill Gates' germ team. But there's much more to follow on this, and I've got more to say. Perhaps we can talk about it on Extra.
Yes, okay. Well, in the